Hello people, this is Python 101, session 1, getting started with Python. If my voice is not clear, you can stop me at any point of time and let me know. If you have any question, you can let me know. This is the first session of the 20 sessions that I'll be conducting during the first quarter of 2021. And in these sessions, I'm going to provide a comprehensive coverage of the Python programming language. Now, in this session is going to be slightly different compared to the rest of the lectures, because in this one, we're going to talk about the class logistics, some class resources, and some rules. And this particular session, we are going to talk about, also going to talk about the Python language in breadth. So covering pretty much all the topics of Python to give you an overall idea of what the language is. And then we will dive deep into each of those topics as we move along. So my name is Himanshu, and I'll be the instructor for all the classes. And as I go forward and I explain you all the resources, you will find out how to contact me and how to ask questions and everything. So the first thing is the class logistics. That's the first thing I want to talk about. So if most likely you have come through this meetup page, the one that you are able to see on my screen at the moment, and in this if you are on this meetup page, then it already lists some links here. So all of these sessions are going to be conducted on Zoom. They will be recorded and then they will be put on YouTube. And you can view those recordings by going to YouTube. And I'm going to tell you all those links in a bit. All the communication for these classes is going to happen on Discord. So if you haven't already, please join the Discord group, and the link is here. So once you join, you will see, let it open, that's okay. And once you go to there, there's a group which is called Python Winters 2021 that you can use to communicate. There is a wiki, which is this, letsbrewcode.atlassian.net, which is here. This wiki is going to have a link to all the resources that we are going to use. So let me bring the Discord up. So this is the Discord. You can join here, and this is the group, which is the Python Winters 2021 that we're going to use for all the communication for this class. Okay, I'll put problems and lecture videos and all of those things here. So you can join it. Now, whoever is joining the whole course, you can essentially please drop kind of like a intro about yourself. You can talk about yourself, your background, what is your motivation to join this class, and I'll also introduce myself here shortly. So I'm going to close this. So wiki. So this wiki contains everything that you need to know to join this class, except the Zoom link, because I cannot put the Zoom link like in public like that. So, but I'll do it later on Discord. So the meetup page, the YouTube channel, the Discord, and then it will have a link to every single session and its recorded video link and the assignment for that particular session. This is the syllabus on the same page. You can look at it. Basically, this Python setup and then data types. Pretty much, you can go to that page and check everything there. In the Discord as well, all of these main links for the page are pinned to the main channel. So once you go to Discord and you go to the top right, there is a pin. If you open that, you will get the main links for that particular channel. So if you go here, Python Winters, this is the pin message. Click all of the resources. This is the YouTube channel where all the recordings will be. I would suggest you subscribe to this channel, because what will happen is as soon as this session is over, I'm going to put the video on YouTube. And as soon as it gets uploaded and processed, which takes few hours, it will appear in your feed automatically. So you'll be able to view it. So please subscribe to this channel. And what else? What else do we have? The practice problems will be discussed the assignment problems will be given on GitHub, and I will share that link when I give you the assignment. So that's the logistics part for these whole sessions. Now, some people are probably joining just this one. Some people are joining other sessions as well. You can take a look at all of the sessions on the Meetup. So if you go to Meetup, if you go to my channel here, and you look at events, then essentially you will see all the events that are there. So this is not for you, but writing your first Python program. So every week, Monday and Wednesday, every single week, Monday and Wednesday, there'll be this Python class. And you can see the whole schedule by clicking on calendar. So now it's opening. So there you go. So getting started with Python today, then writing your first program, then Monday, Python strings, again strings, and then we have, I think, an off because of there should be some holiday here. Maybe it's like Martin Luther King Day, maybe. That's why it's off. Otherwise, whenever there is an off, I will remove the class on that particular day. And this goes all the way to, so 15th is probably the President's Day, and this goes all the way to March. In which we have few sessions in the end that are undecided at the moment. Based on the needs of the class, I will schedule these. These are miscellaneous topics that I can pick whatever I want to. So yes, that's the whole schedule. It's a 3-month long thing, and you can pick and choose whatever you want to attend based on your needs, or you can do the whole program starting to end. Any questions so far?
Yes, can you talk about the assignments?
Yes, I mean, the assignments will be coding assignments, and not today, but starting from the next lecture, every single class will have some problems to solve in class and outside class, both. And some of these assignments are taken from, let me show you, there's a Google Python class, which is a good resource. Some of the assignments I've taken from here for the introductory assignments, like on the strings, list, and then we have several other problems as well. That's pretty much it for the assignment at the moment.
I have a question.
Yes.
My computer is Apple, and so the system is matched with this program.
Yes, it will match. Don't worry. I'm going to talk about the Python setup shortly. It will be okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question: will there be any kind of certificate?
No, there is no certificate for this. It's just, yeah, you're just learning. That's it. All right. So what is this course, first of all? This Python 101, I've been teaching this since 2018. And this course is essentially a pretty comprehensive coverage of everything that is used a lot in Python programming language. And it will be very helpful for people who want to learn this programming language, or people who know how to code here and there in Python but have knowledge gaps. It will be helpful for those as well. If you are looking to use Python as the primary programming language, then this will be helpful for you again. Another important use case for this is the automation of regular stuff that I like a lot. And finally, if you are trying to go into machine learning and data science world, the Python is kind of a dominant language there. So it helps in that particular area as well. it serves as a background for the data science and machine learning domain. So that will be, the course will be helpful for these people. All right, so without further ado, let's get to the setup part, Python setup. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, the first part is setup. What I'm going to use. For the setup, the first thing that you're going to need is Python itself. Okay, and the version is Python 3 dot something that you can get. So you just have to go to the Python website. Go to the download section there and just download. You see it's 3.9.1 right now. So based on your platform, you'll be able to pick the Python, download, install. All right. The next thing is IDE. The IDE that I'm going to use is called Thorny. This IDE is a very simple IDE, and it's designed to teach and learn coding, Python coding, when you're very new to the language. And there is no restriction on the IDE. You can choose whatever you want. You can use PyCharm if you are familiar with it. You can use, Jupyter. You can use Jupyter. I hope the spelling is correct. No, that's not the spelling. The spelling is Jupyter. Yeah. You can use Jupyter if you're familiar with this. You can use any IDE that you're familiar with, but people who are not familiar, you can start with the Thorny IDE. It's very simple. The good thing with Thorny IDE is that it also comes bundled with Python. Okay. So that will be the setup of this course I'm going to use. Now, when you install Python, so first of all, Mac computers come installed with Python. Okay, so there is nothing to do once you install Python. I mean, the Python will be there, but the version will be, the version will be 2 dot something. It will be 2.7 most likely. But what we need is 3 dot something. So you still have to install with the 3 dot something version from Python website. Okay. Now, a word of caution for Windows. In Windows, once you get Python, you will also have to set up the environment variable so that the Python program is accessible on shell by itself. Okay, and we can talk about this later on. You don't need to worry about it right now. Okay, in this class, in this particular lecture, don't worry about following too much the coding or whatever I do. Okay, this is just to give you a breadth of the subject. We will cover all these topics in great detail as we move forward. Okay, and that's going to be the setup. Now, when you install Python, let me get rid of this browser. And fire up my computer terminal. So when you install Python, essentially you're gonna, if you open the Mac terminal and you write Python 3, this one word, Python 3, then it will show you the detail that this is Python 3.7.3. And if you are on this prompt, you are good if you are on Mac. Also, once you install Python, the Python comes bundled with a program called, let me show you, it's called IDLE. Okay, so you can open this program and then this becomes an interactive shell to talk to Python engine. Okay, the Python code, once you write Python code in any file, okay, so the Python code itself can be executed in 3 ways. One is you can write it in a .py file and execute .py file. The another is through an interpreter shell. And this is the program IDLE or terminal or Windows command line. You can use any of these to execute. You can use any of these to run Python in an interpreter mode. And the third is by importing modules. Don't worry about this for now. These things will become extremely clear as we move forward. We're going to dive into all of this.
So question,
Yes.
are you going to put more emphasis on 3.7 or 3.x version
It
of
doesn't matter.
Python
As long as
versus
3 dot something,
2.7?
as long as it's 3 dot something, it's all same. So don't,
Yeah, but as you know, the Mac default version is 2.7. So we need to do the manual installation of 3.x, right? On top
that's
of it.
right. Exactly. Two Python 2 dot something versions are not going to work. We will need Python 3 dot something something.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. So these are the three ways in which I'm going to show you how to execute code. But let's go to the breadth topics first. Let's go and talk about Python real quick. Okay. So first of all, what is Python? Let's begin with that. What is Python? So Python is a programming language, and it's a type of a programming language. It falls in the category called interpreted language. All right, so interpreted language. So programming languages usually are compiled languages and interpreted languages. In a compiled language, you write the code and then you compile it using a compiler into an executable or a bytecode. That executable or bytecode can be executed on another platform. The interpreted languages like Perl, Python, or Shell essentially are not compiled, but the execution engine reads each line and executes it in real time. So Python is an interpreted type of a language. Python is high level language. That means some of these things will make more sense when we start writing code. So high level, for example, will make more sense when we start writing code. It's a high level language, as in the constructs are high level. It does a lot of work for you in background that you don't have to worry about. It's a general purpose language. It is not tied to any specific domain. It's not like SQL, or it's not like some markup language. Python is used pretty much for every single thing people do, and especially it's used. The domains in which it's very dominant is the data science and machine learning domain, scientific computing, that kind of thing. But people use it for rapid prototyping, automation, and it's the only scripting language. By scripting, I mean this interpreted language that possibly is used for writing very big projects. So full length projects are written in Python because the reason is that it supports multiple paradigms. What do I mean by paradigms? Python supports the usual, like the structural programming, OOP programming, object-oriented programming, and you can think of functional programming. So as soon as you jump into this object-oriented programming realm, you can create very, very big projects because you're able to model a real world into objects that are interacting with each other. So it becomes easy to write very big projects. Now, one quick thing, I noticed that there are comments coming. I'll not be able to read them right now. So just hold on till we take a break and I'll reply back. And it will be better if we put those comments in the Discord and not here, because once the class ends, these comments are gone. Zoom comments are gone. The Discord comments will be there. I'll be able to answer them. All right. So those are the reasons that make Python a very popular language. And as I will show you in a bit, Python has a lot of power. A lot of power as in, let's discuss some of the features of Python. Any
Question.
question?
Yeah, question.
Yes.
So can you talk about you mentioned Python, right? Python, and then you mentioned the multiple paradigms
Yeah.
that you can use. Um, so I was thinking for a full stack application,
Mhm.
it's just Python, or you have to use like another frameworks
You will have
or
to use other
libraries?
you will have to use other framework. For example, if you're writing, let's say, a web app, then essentially you will have to use, it's best to use a framework like Django or Flask, something like that. And you'll have to use like a database, and, like server, that kind of thing you'll have to use. But the good thing is there is support in all of these domains that's present.
Okay. Are we going to do something like that? Like, are we going to build something like that?
It depends. So initially, as I mentioned, the bulk of the lectures are going to be about the Python knowledge, how to use the Python language well. And the last 3 lectures are kind of open at the moment. And whatever we as class as a consensus want, we can create a small web app, or we can learn some advanced concepts like multi-threading, that kind of thing. So we can
Nice.
pick in the end.
Nice.
Okay. All right. So some of the important features of Python. I know this is a lot of theory. I don't like theory like this, but it's good idea to present some stuff. And most of these things don't even make sense right now. As we start coding, these things will start, like you'll start understanding why these are important. So let me talk about some features of Python. Okay. There is something called, let me open my browser. Zen of Python, something like that. Yeah. So Python programming language was created in 1991 by a guy named Guido von Rossum. Okay, and later on, somebody added some guiding principles to Python. And they are actually good. I mean, they by themselves, they're not any like technical implementation, but what they are trying to say here is that if you follow these properly, in Python language, you can write, basically it's quick to code, number one. It's highly readable language. If you write pseudocode, then it's pretty much similar to Python. It's like that. And it's less code. It's pretty much 1/3 to 1/5 times of an equivalent C++ Java code. So it's less code, it's quick to code, it's easy to read as well. Now, the important thing to understand here is, for the people coming from different background, programming language background, there is a small learning curve in which what you call, you have to develop a little bit of Pythonic thinking. That if let's say you're a Java coder, and if you try to do Java in Python, then essentially you can code whatever you're trying to achieve. But Python probably can do that in much less and much clearer code. So you have to sort of think Pythonic. And once again, this is a practice thing, and it will be pretty obvious as we move along. So less code. And some of the things that we have already discussed. The only downside is that it can be slow. It can be slow because it's an interpreted language. And the biggest reason why this slowness comes from is that it has something called dynamic typing, dynamic type system. Now, I will just hold on here, okay? This term will come several times, so don't worry about it. But if you notice, for many scientific computing tasks, And for many tasks that require a lot of number crunching, Python is used. The reason it is used is some of the utilities that Python uses, for example, NumPy for crunching numbers, or something like pandas, if you have heard, they are extensions which have been compiled in C and are available to Python. So when you use those extensions, Python essentially is executing C code, which runs like the fastest. So all of the major number crunching and CPU crunching tasks, the libraries that do that, they have already been compiled in C, and Python uses them. So for the numeric computing and the scientific computing, Python is used everywhere, pretty much. Any questions so far?
I have one question.
Yes.
So if you want to develop the graphical interface, so you have your code, and the code will get the input from a graphical interface. Is Python able to do like graphical, like library of equipment, for example? You can drag and drop and then make your network.
Yes.
So yeah, please. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. This is a good question for Discord as well, because then we can talk about the libraries that are used there as well. So there are a few libraries that you can use to create UIs and get the user input as well. So people use it for like fast prototyping their apps in that way.
Thank you.
And I have a question.
Yes.
What is the difference between the compiled part and interpreted part? Like one line, I think one does like one line at a time, the other one does like multiple lines at a time.
No, so suppose you are writing C++. Okay, this is your file and you have written code. The next thing you do is that you compile this code, and this code becomes an executable. I'm writing exe, just think about it, an executable. This executable is gonna run on some platform without the need of this code as such. You can just pass this executable and it will run on that. So for example, you might have a lot of programs that you've downloaded from the internet. They are executable files, or they are jar files, which you can just run, right? As opposed to a Python code or a shell code, like shell scripting code. You have this Python file. The Python interpreter, it does not get compiled to any bytecode. So there is an exception. It does get compiled in certain situations. We will see that towards the later half of the course. But you can think that for running this file, there is no executable. The Python engine is gonna go to the first line, whatever is there is gonna evaluate. Then it's gonna go to the second line, evaluate. Third line, evaluate. If the C++ code has a bug somewhere, okay, suppose you have a syntax error here somewhere, you have written if something something and you have not put, let's say, the opening bracket. While the compiling, you're gonna get an error at that point. You cannot form an exe because the compilation will detect an error. But if your Python program has a bug, the interpreter, suppose your bug is in this fourth line here, the interpreter will still be happy to execute these 3 lines. And when it comes to the 4th line, that at that time it will notice that there is a bug and it will report it. So interpreter do not pre-inspect the code in this way. They just run the code as they see it, and if they get an error, they throw the error. Okay. You can read a little bit about the compiled language versus the interpreted language difference.
Great, thanks. So is that the .pyc extension that you're talking about? Sometimes it compiles?
Yeah, exactly. So .pyc is the Python bytecode file. Yes. We will see that file when we talk about the modules part.
And when we use the IDEs, does it do the line by line or the PYC part?
It's line by line.
Okay.
It's line by line. The PYC is only evaluated. So when you're running a code, okay, suppose this is your Python program. Okay, so suppose this is a.py. You have one program, and then you have something like b.py, and suppose you have c.py. Okay, suppose A imports b.py and A also imports c.py. Okay. Once you import something, Python knows that this function, this has been imported in a project. There might be something like x.py, z.py, other files as well. They might also be importing these same things. So they don't need to be evaluated again. So if something is imported, what Python does is Python creates a cache copy b.pyc and c.pyc locally, that if other modules import the same thing, then it doesn't have to execute those modules, but just simply go here and get the copy. That's the only situation. Now, if this does not make sense, don't worry at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. What are we going to talk about in this particular course? All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is core data types. My execution environment is ready. So I'm just going to use some code to demonstrate some things. You don't have to follow me at the moment, okay? Nothing in this particular lecture, you don't have to follow me at all. So don't worry if you cannot execute it, okay? The next session, you will get the opportunity to write code, and then I'll also be writing code. So first is the core data types. Python has a number of core data types. Python provides you numbers, strings, lists, hash maps. They are called dictionaries. Python has sets, files, and something called tuples. It has bytes and all that. So those are the core data types. And all of these are actually very, very powerful. So let me give you a quick demo. Okay, so don't worry about this, how I'm doing it for now. So suppose I write 2 plus 2. I'm right now in the Python interpreter shell, in which I am talking to Python like a chat engine. I'm going to ask a question and Python will reply with an answer. So 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, I can write 5 multiplied by 10, 50. So I'm just adding a number here, and a multiplication sign. Python understands that these two are numbers and it does the multiplication as well. Suppose I want to do a power, like, so you can do 2 to the power 100. So you can do 2 to the power, let's say 1000. You can notice that these numbers are really big, that there is no limit to how much you can store in a number in Python. You can store to the point where your computer memory will last. So these simple things make life easy when you're in a mundane automation situation. Any questions?
Yeah, what if you multiply that by very, very small numbers? Like, I don't know, I was just thinking like how Python handles very small numbers or very big numbers.
Well, this is the same thing.
The same thing.
Yeah. So I mean, there is no limit on the numbers. Essentially, what I'm saying, it's minus infinity to infinity. That's how it goes.
But I was thinking like in, you know, like I don't know how to express this, but basically, what if the number is bigger than the memory available for a variable?
So that's what I was explaining. In other languages, there is a concept that, for example, integer might be 16 bytes, something like that. But Python doesn't have that. The number, there is no limit. There is no limit. For example, right now I'm doing 2 to the power 10,000, and that is the answer of 2 to the power 10,000. There will not be an integer overflow ever in Python. The only overflow that can happen is that your computer runs short of the memory to hold that.
Nice.
Okay, so these type of things, as I mentioned, makes life easy. Okay, I'm gonna mute you. Python has a bunch of very powerful libraries. For example, suppose, let me show you some other things. Suppose that you have this computation. What would be the answer for this? It will not be 0. The reason it's not 0 is because the floating point numbers are never stored precisely in any computers. There are only few bits which are reserved for the precision. So these numbers are not exactly represented. But I'm going to do something, don't worry about it. But you have things that make your life simple. So I'm just going to write I'm just going to import something like a decimal class. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing again. And we run it. Okay, what did I do? Sorry. 0.1 and 0.1. So you'll see that it's decimal 0.0. So if you want that precision, there are libraries that you can use for that precision. Sometimes you get into a situation where you, let's say you have number 5 by 3. The computers are going to store them as this irrational number here, but sorry, a non-repeating sequence here, non-terminating sequence. I'm sorry, but yeah. But if you just want to keep that number as 5 by 3, right? Then there are other tools, for example, so you can just write fraction of, let's say, 1,3 or fraction of 5,3. And you can add things to it. You can say fraction of this plus fraction of, let's say, 2 by 5, something like this. Then that results in fraction of this. You can print the result of that as well.
Quick question.
Something like that. And you can see the fraction is preserved like that. Yes.
Is it case sensitive, like from fractions to import fraction?
Yes, that is case sensitive. The Python is a
Okay.
case sensitive language.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, but this all falls in the domain of numbers. These are Python numbers. And there is much more power than this. Python has the, by default, without doing anything, Python has the capability to represent complex numbers. Not sure if you know about it, but it's okay. There's something called complex numbers. You can do all the algebra and arithmetic on this complex numbers. So that's one data type. Now you have something like strings in Python, which are also pretty powerful. You can put them any kind of any kind of character that you can put in a quote becomes a string. Okay, for example, I put my name Himanshu, and all kind of operations can be done on these on the strings. And I mean, it's very hard to demonstrate without explaining what's going on behind the scenes. And we have 2 lectures dedicated on string itself, but I'll show you a few things. For example, if you want to append 2 strings, then you can do this. You can multiply a string with something, and then it just automatically concatenates. This is very helpful in certain situations, that if you have, let's say, a character and you want to repeat it 1,000 times, you can just do that, and it concatenates automatically. Once again, none of this you need to practice at the moment. And with the strings, you can do substring, slicing, all kind of operations. And the string library is huge. It provides you all kind of functions. You can search, replace, and yeah, find patterns and replace patterns. Then we have Python arrays. Python arrays are represented by square brackets. So suppose this is array 1. And in Python world, arrays are referred to as lists. A Python array essentially is a Python list. And these lists are actually, once again, they're very powerful. The first thing that you will notice is coming from other background, this will be a new thing for you, but this will become pretty normal. Suppose I call this list L, then I can do like put this, then I can put maybe a string in it. I can put, let's say, a float in it, like 3.14, something like that. And Python is okay with that. That is your array at the moment. So you can put pretty much anything inside an array in Python. And then you can do all kind of operations on it. So if you want to get the first element, like the indexing, you get it. You can do slicing and all that. And once again, you can multiply it with, let's say, 10, then this array becomes 10 array long. Once again, array essentially is unlimited size. You can store as much as you want till your computer allows. And it is, you can put any kind of data in the array. You can put array in the array. You can put other data structures in the array.
So is cake there another list?
What is that?
Is your cake in the quotes? Is that another list with the characters cake in it?
So this is actually a good question, and I'll partially explain this. So thinking this looks like a list, and you can think of this as a sequential structure as well, which has a left to right order which preserves, but it is fundamentally different from a list. It is not, the strings are fundamentally different from a list. And that difference comes from the mutability and immutability. If you try to change a list in place, you'll be able to change it, but a string cannot be changed in place. So it's a very, very restricted array. You can say that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me add somebody else. Yes, any other question?
I have a question for the, is this like a special to Python? Because the, you have an array, you have a list, right? Less than times 10. It actually just repeat and concatenate that.
Yeah.
But in other languages, it might be first convert to L to some type of numeric, then times 10, and the end result it will be a numeric. So is this like a special? This is the first time I see this. Is this like unique to Python? Or
I think yeah, this very well might be unique in Python. Let me think about it. Have I seen it in any other language? Maybe not. I've not seen it. Yes.
Because the other language, I would expect they would do the type what's it called, the casting,
yes.
Then do the computation.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, the types are a little tricky to begin with, but then they become very obvious later on. But yes, this may be unique to Python. May very well be unique to Python, that you have if you multiply a sequence by a number, then the sequence repeats regardless of the type or whatever.
Yeah, it's very powerful, but also at the same time, it's very kind of dangerous. Like you don't know what the result would be. And some logic like this.
Yes, and there is a philosophy in Python as well, that there is a philosophy of uniformity in Python, which is very strong. As we move along, we will see that all the structures of same type, they respond in the same way. So that kind of helps. As I will show you later, that if you had like a for loop which was doing something on a string, and by accident you pass it an array, it will continue to work on the array as well, unless there is some very strict check. So there is a lot of polymorphism built into the language when you use it.
So for L, could you do L times 10 of 12 and get, the 12th of the L times 10? Does that make sense?
You mean this?
L is only 3 long, but if you say, yes, L times 10
So let's first store this, right? So let's say L1 equals to L multiplied by 10, and then you can do L1 of 12. That'll be 123.
Okay, but you could not just write L1 times 10.
I think this is going to throw an error. Let's see. Because what Python is going to say is that this has a very high precedence, right? Probably the highest precedence, that you're trying to obtain an index from a sequence. But 10 is not a sequence, 10 is a number. So it's saying that int object is not subscriptable.
Ah,
that's the problem.
Maybe you add
let's try parentheses. Let's try parentheses.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. But maybe, yeah, it worked. That's why so you can do that. You can add the precedence like that. Then it probably works.
okay. Thank you.
These type of things are very helpful. Let's say you want to initialize an array of 100 size with 0. You can just write 0 multiplied by 100. You have an array of length 100 just by doing that. And this apparently is the fastest way to create an array as well. So, but once again, don't worry about the details. We're going to dive very deep into all of this. And these things will become extremely clear. Yeah.
Quick question. So we're talking about the array, also the matrix. And is it possible that he can do work with the matrix, inverse the matrix?
Yes. So
just to find, yeah, okay. Please.
So you can have an array within an array to represent the matrix maybe. So you can do this. So now this is, suppose, let me just go back and say m equals to that. That's matrix. Now, if the first row of that matrix is this, the second row of matrix is this, and you can do quite a bunch of things on matrix in Python. And there are whole libraries that deal with this subject. So yeah, I mean, you will be able to work in Python.
Yeah, okay. It's very, yeah. I'm used to C++, and they have to do the inverse of the matrix by creating the code, but this is really powerful. So I use the C++, I use MATLAB. MATLAB is very, very also straightforward, but seems like is more MATLAB type.
So the MATLAB, I think what is MATLAB? It's an n-dimensional array, right? That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean the built-in functions and the stuff like that. So
there is a library called NumPy.
Okay.
In Python, which is used heavily in data science field. Okay. That I think is the MATLAB extension for Python.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can do all kind of things. And this, once again, this library is C compiled. So it runs at C speed, all the operations here.
Perfect. Oh, okay. This is powerful again. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what about null, undefined, empty, void?
Good question. So Python, all the languages have something to define a null type of an identifier. Python has it called none. Right. So let me add to this list as well. That's a good thing that you brought it up. You have things like none, Boolean. Python has this none essentially means that is equal to a Java null or a C++ null. That's what this is. And it is used a lot when you do some comparisons, when you're running looping or something to check if something is none or not. Also, true and false. These are case sensitive. They go in that way. So Python true is a custom value for 1. Python false is a custom value for 0. Okay, I don't want to. Don't worry about it. Okay, so for example, you can write true plus 1. Actually, I'm regretting showing this right now. Yeah, but you can do something like this, but don't worry about it. So you have Booleans, you have none. None essentially means nothing. We talked about numbers and lists. Python, the third powerful pillar data structure of Python, right, that's used a lot, is the Python dictionaries. Python dictionaries are the Python hash maps, and they're represented by curly brackets. And you can put any immutable data type as a key. Okay, so you can put the first key can be 1, and the value can be 10. The second key can be, let's say, USA, and the key can be Washington. Sorry, the value can be Washington. So that represents a dictionary right now. Once again, following the same principle, nothing has to be tied to a particular data type. Anything can be anything. The only restriction here is that the key has to be immutable, which we'll talk about later on. And then you can just access it like how you will access an array. So you can just write this, or you can just write USA. That's a Python dictionary. You can add keys, you can remove keys, you can add two dictionaries, you can compute the union intersection of the two dictionaries. You can run all the set operations on dictionaries. So they're pretty powerful dictionaries, and they're used a lot.
So what is example of application of that?
What is that?
Example of application of this function, dictionary.
You mean, what is the example of?
Using this function, using this dictionary, or can you give an example? Yeah,
everywhere. So suppose you have a book, okay, and you want to count the frequency of each word in the book. Okay, suppose that I have a sentence here. Okay, my name is Himanshu. Suppose you're running some kind of a stat. Okay, suppose this is the S equals to that, and I want you to count the occurrence of each character here. Okay, the dictionary makes life very simple, right? In the end, you will get a result which is a letter and the count. So you can loop through this, and you can store the count and character and count in a dictionary and use it. Right? All kind of caching problems are solved using dictionaries like that. Every single form of, like, whenever you want to look up something based on a key, dictionary is the answer, most likely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're looking into dictionaries. I'm just gonna run a little faster around. You have conditional logic, looping, and functions. What we are going to talk about here. Let me go back to my wiki. So I'm just quickly going to show you this because we're coming to an end of the class, but I still want to cover a few more things. So as a syllabus, we're going to cover the Python's basics, code execution, and we're going to talk about all the code data types in great detail. These are the data types that we're going to talk about. Then we're going to jump onto the conditional logic. That is how to use Booleans and how to write if-else logic. We're going to go into the looping in Python, show all the type of loops and custom iterators that you can create. Then we're going to come to functions. Functions are very powerful. Once again, like every other thing, functions are very powerful in Python. You have a lot of flexibility in function. You can have functions within a function, within a function. A function can return a function, that kind of thing. And after that, some error handling, Python modules and packages, some important modules that are used in day-to-day life a lot. Then we're going to talk about the object-oriented programming and classes. And in that, we're going to talk about a very important topic of polymorphism. That is, we can very easily convert the behavior of any operator the way we want. And finally, we'll talk about one advanced topic, regex, because it's used a lot everywhere. And then we have some advanced topics like list comprehensions, generator expressions, generator functions. So these you would list them as functional programming type of things. And then we have some other things like how do you measure the performance by using some timing utilities, unit testing, some multi-threading. And these are the topics towards the end that can be changed as well based on the class interest. So this is going to be the coursework. Now, let me do something. If you are interested in these sessions, then once again, go to the meetup page. You must have the address, the URL for it, and you can sign up for the next sessions. All the sessions are going to be on Zoom. They're going to be recorded. And for example, this session has been recorded and it's going to be put on YouTube right after this lecture. It will take a few hours for YouTube to process. And once it's there, you will be able to, you can view it. Just subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the fastest way. And if you feel that you know bits and parts of the language, then you can pick and choose what you want to learn. You can appear for those, you can just come for those topics, and then it's completely open. Everything is open to however you want. Okay, the next session, we're running out of time right now. So next session, we're going to talk about writing code. In that session, what I will do is right after this class, we're going to talk on the Discord channel. I'm going to tell you to install and set up your Python environment. And starting the next session, we're going to start coding. We will write the first few programs, some basic programs, and improve those programs as we go along and form the foundation for the Python strings class. One of the things that I'm going to introduce rather early in a very basic way is Python functions, because we're going to, in the assignments that I'm going to give you, there'll be functions in which you will have to code. So that's the plan for the next session. Any questions?